Just safe and right on the shoulder. Okay, you ready for a jibe? Okay, let's go.
So here we are for the 2020 Sandy Shell at Hayling Island Sailing Club. Possibly the most hotly contested RS200 event of the year. The course was start line between a rib for a committee boat and a stick mark for the pin, up to a dumpy buoy for a windward mark. The Leeward mark was a gate using the start line, so you could either go round the committee boat to port or round the stick mark to starboard. It was 2 laps, so twice the windward mark, finishing through the start line. A little double tack up towards the starboard end of the line. Tide-wise, the tide was always going in through the racing. Quite a strong bit of flow at the leeward end of the course, going from right to left or south to north. Nice little trigger there, squeezing the boat flat, good acceleration. Nice little duck.
Right there. Not particularly lifted at the moment.
So conditions-wise, yeah, most of the tide was at the leeward end of the course, with the tide dropping as you got towards the windward mark as you were more in the shallows. Just noting a few seconds ago that as we came off the line we weren't on a particularly good heading, and really it was a shift switch with the big gains on Saturday.
Ready for tuck? Okay, let's go. Yeah.
Nice little tack there, so got a decent start. The boat over her shoulder was starting to luff us out, but lucky they tapped off and we got back into our own lane. This was the first race of the day. You can see it's quite light here, but did pick up a little bit during the race.
Breeze on the left-hand shoulder here. I think that's going to get to us before the gust.
It was one of those days where you really wanted to get into sync with the shifts as soon as possible, and actually sometimes getting a good start on starboard actually was a negative thing because you got locked into a lane, whereas if you bounced out you could get into phase a little bit more quicker and have a look at your compass numbers and work out which tack you should be on. So getting knocked back across, we're kind of middle of the pack in terms of spread across the course, so we're just trying to use this extra bit of pressure to get over to the right hand side and kind of protect that side of the course after a decent start. Pretty competitive bunch of boats racing. We had James Peters, who I think he's the reigning national champion. He's a multiple RS200 national champion though, so pretty quick guy. Also previously ranked number 149 sailor in the world, just crossing ahead of us there. We also had Sydenham, who's an ex-national champion, doing the Sandy Shell with his son, and showing some ridiculously quick light wind speed.
Got a bit of tide taking it to it, ready for attack. So we got a bit of tide taking us up to it.
So yeah, the top of the course, it felt like the tide was lifting up to the ley lines. It was more kind of on your transom or even on your kind of like back quarter lifting you up. Whereas at the leeward end of the course, it was definitely pushing you from right to left and towards the pin end of the line and over the line. Says James just tacking in behind. It was Lee who rounded in first. We went for the jibe set for two reasons really. First of all, it was just generally the longer jibe, but also we felt like we got a knock towards the starboard ley line, so we were coming in lifted as we came in on starboard. So that means you want to sail the headed tack, which is port, so flip over onto port as quick as possible. It was an okay jibe set, but I felt like initially as it came out, James was looking really good inside. I was like, oh, if he's going to soak there, he's going to hold us. Fairly even split in the fleet here, with boats going out right downwind. Really good bit of crew feedback.
They're getting stuck in a bit of a lifting match behind, which is helping us.
Okay. Right on the edge.
Yeah, we're lucky there. Those 3 boats just interfering one another, take each other off to the side of the course.
Sheet. Okay, ready for a jibe?
So we'd soaked down really low, but I felt like those 3 boats were starting to get over the top of us, so I
okay, let's go.
decided to go for a jibe, just otherwise didn't want to give them the opportunity to jibe on top of us. So nice little roll jibe there, got a good squeeze out of it. This part of the downwind start to get a bit tense. You can see me looking around back and forth, and I thought as those 3 boats jibes, actually they're looking quite good inside me there. Maybe I jibed a fraction too early. You can see the other boats out right, they look like they're coming really good as well, so it's going to be super close at this Leeward mark. So as I said in the intro, it's the Leeward gate actually between the committee boat and the pin end, so using the start line as a Leeward gate, and we actually thought the starboard end of the line was maybe favoured. So that's where we were aiming to go to, that was our goal, to get to the rib, to round the rib to port. It's the lead boat with a black kite going across our bow. And now I'm frantically checking the left-hand shoulder for those 3 boats, because when I jibe I'm going to be on port, so I've got to get across them, otherwise they're just going to bounce me back onto starboard. Really nice little jibe and squeeze out, so easily clear across those boats. It wasn't so close as I thought it was.
We've got lots of space, it's fine, just tide's taking
So we're lined up for this
down on the lay, so.
this rounding of the rib to port. And at this point, I could see quite a lot of the boats going up the other way, and I was like, maybe the end of the gate's favoured. And I think the real difference here is it's with the tide going quite strong, the rib is a really big obstruction to get around for a Leeward mark rounding. So even if the line was pretty fair itself, by the time you've gone around the bow of the rib, that's an extra boat length. That boat length's doubled, obviously you've got to go downwind, so.
A bit upwind. Ready for...
The pin end of the line was
Ready for attack?
down tide as well, so you didn't have to go as far up tide to get to it, so.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that the boats that went to the pin end or the left-hand gate as you look at wind gained there, and that we were second, but I think that gave
this bit of patch of breeze here.
Gave a couple of the boats down that right-hand side back into the game.
Okay, let's go.
So those boats that went to the left-hand gate are still out further left of us, and we just tacked before the cross because I didn't want to concede those positions. We're fortunate to come into a bit of pressure, and actually, with the tide going from right to left, we are being lifted up to this lay, and
we're just on, not really on that big of a lift. It feels nice because we've got more pressure.
I think we're really fortunate that the boats who did pick the correct gate to go to, the left-hand gate, overstood this windward mark on the port lay line. So that's Tommy Darling who reached in.
Jibe set.
So I call the jibe set again, and again I just thought this was a long jibe, but
I go forward, isn't
Yeah.
it?
a few boats were carrying on starboard, so Tommy Darling with that blue kite carried on starboard, and black kite Sydenham's carried on the starboard for a wave first before
Yeah.
kind of matching us.
Okay, just getting out from behind the boat.
Bit of rubbish air as you get out from the wind mark. That's the other thing with the jibe set, is you are underneath people, and at this point start to get really stressful. Pretty much everyone had straight set down this last run, and kind of looking across at everyone like, oh, I'm so isolated over here on my own.
Yeah.
Coming into the finish here, and Sydenham's got a comfortable lead, and it was looking like the Darlings are across our bow, but we just get a good bit of pressure right at the last minute. Bring us into the line. It's going to be super close, super tight finish.
Ready for the jibe?
So I think I realised pretty light that it's a finish rather than just some lark grounding. So I put the jibe in just to head dead downwind and take the second place by maybe a foot or so.
Well, maybe not.
Okay, so the rest of the racing, this is the third race, going for attack and dink. So straight into a 720, and 720s in 2 knots, 3 knots of wind are pretty painful. By the windward mark, we were in 8th position, so after a not great result in the previous race, kind of thought that was it over, and the wind just continued to drop off. But by the second lap, we put a few boats behind us and have overtaken two or three boats, and going downwind for the last time, really quite light now. Managed to sneak through to third in that race in the last downwind, and this is the last race, and you can see how light it is. Crew down to Leeward, sailing the boat with a bit of leeward heel on the whole time, but we managed to get some windward mark in first position, like I had been most of the day, rolling straight into jibe set. So got Lee Sydenham. Actually, it was it's his boy who was helming in that one. We managed to carve out a decent lead by the leeward mark, and we went outright upwind. It always felt as the wind was dropping off, the best of the pressure was coming in on little bits of right-hand shift. And here is the very, very tragic last downwind. Coming into the finish, having a little chat with the race officer. An absolute glass. It was kites down for the last run. Drifting back home on the tide, which is fortunately now taking us back towards the clubhouse. But yeah, kind of felt like we really fluked that. That was a pretty crap race. We took the win in it, and that actually gave us the win on same numbers, first, seconds and thirds, and won it on fact of being ahead of him in the last race. But that's it for the Sandy Shell. Hopefully get some more skiff basics video up in the future, maybe a bit of racing if we get out to some of the Sail Juice series in the 800. So yeah, stay tuned, subscribe to the channel for that, and see you around.